What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and the overall market. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have CPI data coming out, how it may affect the market moving forward. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. So as far as Tesla's going, I just want to mention that Tesla has been technically trading sideways for the last couple of months, as Tesla was on an uptrend approaching like the 450s, with some exceptions of going higher. We had a tendency of rejecting many times. But as Tesla dipped towards the 418 to 402 areas, we tended to bounce many times on Tesla, being range bound overall. So the question is, will we see some kind of big break to the upside or the downside, and what factors will be affecting us? Looking at Tesla's setup, I was talking yesterday about how Tesla likely would be forming sort of like a head and shoulders like pattern. And I said we'd likely see a nice bounce if we held 420, and that is close to what happened, right? We had this left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. And we did get a very nice bounce, as you predicted, off the 420 zone, or very close to 420. So we were right about Tesla getting a bounce after earnings, but instead of possibly getting some kind of rejection move, I mentioned that if Tesla rejected here, we'd look for that head and shoulders. But if we held above 440, then we'd expect it to continue to push towards 450, right? Those were my bullish and bearish cases. Instead, we held 440, and now Tesla's looking for a retest of the high at that 450 mark. So Tesla is still looking more bullish from a technical standpoint, and we got a nice close even after earnings had come out. So now Tesla's in a very, very critical place right now, because you could argue that, look, we're making higher lows, higher lows. We technically made an equal low here and then bounced, but Tesla's continuing to break out. And the bullish case is that this is like a left shoulder, a head, and then we formed like a double bottom for the right shoulder for an inverse head and shoulders, which would take us back up towards the 460 area. That is the really bullish case. If Tesla keeps holding above 450, there is a chance this is going to likely end up happening. But if you want to be bearish on Tesla, you could still argue that the head and shoulders has not been invalidated. And then we also have that gap all the way down in the 390s to fill. We have not dropped the 390s to fill that gap yet. The bears will argue that, wait a second, you have a left shoulder, a head up here, and then we're basically just consolidating, forming that right shoulder, and we're about to see some kind of big sell-off move to fill this gap over here. So that's going to be very important for Tesla. Those are going to be your two main perspectives. Now, as an unbiased trader, I want to make it very clear that I am not really biased when it comes to CPI. CPI will be coming out, and that's going to have a very profound effect on the markets, I believe. And that may be a make or break for this market. Either the market continues to rally, or we're about to get a massive rug pull if we see something pan out. So I'm going to break down what the news is saying about Tesla, why Tesla stock is in a very critical place, and what's happening with CPI. And then I'll break down exactly what I think is going to happen to the charts in a lot more detail. One last thing, SPY and the QQQ do look bullish right now, but we're approaching the all-time highs. SPY got 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 or 5 rejections near this all-time high. Will we break all-time highs and continue to run, or do we get a big rejection off this all-time high, just like what happened 5 times ago? And then also what happened with the QQQ, we also have the same thing. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 rejections off the all-time high at 613. Do we break 613 to make new all-time highs, or do we get a big rejection? This will also affect the way Tesla moves as Tesla tries to push. Will it pump and get a big rejection? Does it just keep on squeezing the new all-time highs? We'll see about that. I'll give you guys all the insights in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about the news. So I first want to mention that when it comes to Tesla stock, their overall earnings were mixed. Okay, the bad news was that their EPS missed expectations at 50 cents, but the good news was that their overall revenue ended up beating expectations, especially as we saw a big increase in their overall sales. So that was some good news for Tesla. When it came to their overall earnings, the Tesla share price started dropping because I believe that Elon Musk and the team gave us a very, very harsh reality check that, look, Tesla is very bullish for the long term. There's so many great projects, from Optimus to the robotaxis to the expansion plans for their sales. But unfortunately, it's not going to be a walk in the park, and there's going to be a lot of hardships to get there, right? But Musk did give us some nice hints about the future, about how their production can reach 3 million in the next 24 months, about how we're going to see the robotaxi expanding to 8 to 10 areas. by the time the year ends, hopefully we start to see expansions to like Florida, Arizona, and more areas like that. And then by the end of the year in Texas, they might be able to have the robotaxi move without some kind of human like passenger on the side that's going to be like the safety monitor. They might be able to eliminate those in some areas. But Musk mentioned that safety is the main priority. So that's the main thing to remember. And much of the news was very optimistic, very great. I think that's part of why Tesla got a nice bounce. Now, one very important thing is that Tesla's shareholder meeting comes up in just a couple of weeks. And Elon Musk is kind of like urging us that, look, when it comes to his pay package, he thinks it's very important for him to get an approval for his pay package because Musk says he doesn't want to just spend the money like crazy. That's what he claims. He mentioned that he wants to have enough voting control to give a strong influence over Tesla and not go, and but not so much to the point where he can't be fired. He wants to have more control because of the kinds of projects that they are developing, right? When it comes to like Optimus, he doesn't want to develop what he called a robot army, and then all of a sudden he just gets fired and then it gets in the wrong hands. But at the same time, he wants to be able to be fired in case he goes insane. But of course, there will have to be like a board approval. So he wants to have more power over it, but not too much power to the point where he's like a tyrant. He wants to be like in the middle. That's what Musk is saying, and he thinks it's very important. So he's urging us to vote for that, at least during the next shareholder meeting. Besides that, when you look at their overall operating profits, the last couple of quarters were not that great compared to what we saw in 2023, 2024, and beyond. Margins are just not looking as great for Tesla. And as a result, once again, this was not the best of news. So some things weren't so great for Tesla, other things were okay. What are analysts saying right now? Well, we have some analysts saying that we should just hold Tesla. Most of them are saying just hold on to your Tesla shares and don't worry. The price price ratio is also flat here, which tells us that Tesla's kind of like trading sideways, not really doing a whole lot. And then when it comes to seasonality, Fridays are known for being green about 50% of the time for Tesla. But mind that October is known for being one of the weakest months of the year, whereas November is known for being stronger. And that's it for now. I'm not seeing anything else too crazy for Tesla news. So Tesla, to me, it seems like it's going to see a big reaction depending on CPI and how the whole market ends up responding. So what's happening with CPI? Tomorrow is going to be October 24th, Friday, the second to last Friday, the penultimate Friday of the month. And it's going to be very important. Okay. First, we have CPI in the morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then at 9:45 a.m., we have the S&P Global Composite and Manufacturing PMI reports. That's also going to be very important. So what will this lead to moving forward? Well, at 8:30 a.m., we first have core CPI month over month. This is expected to be the same. For core CPI year over year, we're expecting 3.1 to 3%, the same as before. And all items CPI year over year, we're expecting 3 to 3.1%. However, wait, I'm sorry. For CPI month over month, for all items, we're expecting the same number. But then for year over year, for all items, we're expecting that to go up. So just to clarify, everything is basically expected to be the same except for year over year CPI for all items. This is the only thing you need to know and worry about. So we're expecting an increase in all items CPI year over year to 3 to 3.1%. That's going to be very important. If we see a sharp increase in CPI, it's not going to be a good sign. If it's close to expectations or below them, it's going to be okay. So President Trump and his team are getting lots of criticism from mainstream media because of the fact that inflation is going up. And if we see CPI reach 3% for the first time, that's going to be the first time in the last 12 months that's happened. That's the first time since Biden was president that ended up happening. So that's very important. As you could tell when you look at all items CPI, the blue line right here, there tends to be a cap at that 3% mark. We have not surpassed 3% CPI in a while. And it looks like we're approaching that. That is still a pretty, a somewhat hot number. So you want to be very careful if this leads to volatility. When you look at crude data, crude futures have actually been dropping. Also, the price of a barrel of oil has been dropping the last few months. That could be a sign that CPI won't be too bad. So hopefully it's not too bad. I hope it's going to be okay. And CPI will also be affecting the Fed's confidence and the overall market's confidence in the Fed giving us another cut or not. Will confidence drop or does it maintain this high percentage? We will see depending on CPI. Now, lastly, I just want to add that Intel had earnings at the time of recording this. They're doing well. They have good contracts so far, and they beat their overall revenue expectations. But we have to wait and see what else happens as time goes on. President Trump also considered a sweeping plan to restrict U.S. software exports to China, covering a wide range of products from laptops to jet engines, and the list goes on. That's very important. This is kind of like a measure in response to Beijing's recent expansion of rare earth export restrictions. And then on top of this, there's been some more news coming out that President Trump has repeated that China could be hit with a 155% tariff starting November 1st, unless they come up with a deal. So he's repeating the same things. There aren't too many puts expiring tomorrow. We have a little bit over or a little bit under 300,000 calls and a little bit over 500,000 puts for a 1.67 put to call option ratio. So there aren't way too many puts, which does once again give the bears some hope. So what do I think about all this data? I went over everything. What do I think is going to happen? Well, honestly, guys, I'm not some kind of fortune teller. I'm not Nostradamus or anything like that. I don't know if Tesla's about to form an inverse head and shoulders and get a big breakout, or if we're about to see some kind of like rug pull move. I'm not sure about that yet. I do know that at 450 there is some tough resistance, but technicals favor upside a bit more on Tesla for a move like this. It's more likely that Tesla continues to break out for the 460s. That's a bit more probable based off technical analysis. But technical analysis is not sufficient because of CPI, and that's why you want to be very unbiased. If CPI is hot and if the whole market comes down, if Tesla fails at 450, we could also reject and then form a head and shoulders and eventually dump back down towards that 395 gap fill. So honestly, guys, to be bullish, you want to see us hold 450 to push for 454 plus or above. To be bearish, you want to see us reject and lose 435 to start dipping back down towards the lows. We're in the middle right now, but because Tesla bounced like this and got a monstrous move, we are technically looking a bit more in favor of bulls, and Tesla's favoring a test of 455 to 460. Upside looks a bit more probable on Tesla, so we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. So be very patient, and we'll see what ends up happening as time goes on. That's going to be very important for us. Now, SPY and the QQQ are very simple. As you could tell, we're just making higher lows, and higher lows. The chart is favoring all-time highs. But then the bears will argue that, wait a second, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 rejections on SPY near the all-time high. The bulls will argue that, we're actually making like higher lows. So, there's a bullish and a bearish case. I think we go a little bit higher tomorrow. And if SPY could clear this 674 area, we're looking for new highs. If we reject here, we could be dipping back down to 667 or below for a double top rejection. It could go either way, so it depends on CPI. I don't know for sure what's going to happen with CPI. I think we go a little bit higher, and then the technicals do look more bullish. We're favoring upside a little bit more for new highs. It looks a bit more probable to me, but we'll see just to be safe, okay? Although technicals do favor upside, I like to be very unbiased before CPI comes out, so we'll see what ends up happening. We're approaching all-time highs where the market has rejected many times, but be patient with this. Same thing with the QQQ. We have 1, 2, 3, like 4 rejections near the all-time high. We're going to test the all-time high. If we break this, I would not rule out for 615 plus. If we reject, though, we could be returning back down to another double top rejection. Could go either way. We're completely in the middle. I think we go a bit higher for 613. Then we're going to see if we reject here or not. It's really a make or break. And because I don't know for sure what's going to happen with CPI, we have to be very unbiased. For the IWM, we have a wedge forming. We're getting very tight. It could break in either direction. But as of right now, it's showing some strength, and it's favoring and wants to go higher for like 248 plus. Now, if we lose 244, we could be dumping to fill this gap. And even if we do push a bit, be careful because there's still that gap to fill back down at 237 over here. So I don't think that I'm completely confident about this setup yet. I'm going to be very patient with this. That's the best thing I can really tell you. For ES, we're trying to make higher lows here. It does look a little bit more bullish. If we break 6,800, we're bullish, but every time historically we hit the 6,800s, we rejected every single time. So we're going to see, do we push here and then reject back down, or do we just keep breaking 6,800? CPI could be very unpredictable, so be careful with that. For NQ, we're looking bullish. We're favoring the all-time high again. I think we go up for 25,400, but then notice that we got 1, 2, 3, like 4 rejections on NQ at this all-time high. Do we reject again, or do we keep running? You want to be very careful just in case. So look for some upside, and we'll see if we get a rejection. Bitcoin is in the middle. It does look a little bit more bullish, trying to form a base here. There's like a low here, came up, made a higher low. Could be trying to push back up to 112,000. So we'll see how that goes. And then I want to add on that the VIX, it technically has a head and shoulders like pattern. It's dipping and it does favor the low 16s. Then we're going to see if it breaks out. Also minds that there is a bullish falling wedge right now, and these do typically lead to big breaks to the upside or the downside. So we'll see how it ends up going as time goes on. On top of this, I want to add on that for other tickers out there, we also happen to have Tesla. So, like I said about Tesla, if the overall market gets a big breakout, of course, Tesla will likely continue to rally really hard. If Tesla and the whole market reject with CPI, we could be turning back down. Technicals favor that Tesla will kind of like consolidate and push for 455 to 460 and go higher. That's the most likely possibility. But of course, I don't know for sure, and technical analysis is not entirely sufficient as it depends on the CPI data report, especially all items year over year, the most important metric. For Nvda, we're range bound. As we hit 182.8, we like to reject. As we hit 178.8, we like to bounce. We're going to see if we have a double bottom here and if we break out higher for essentially 185. So watch that very closely. For Aapl. Aapl dipped our 20 EMA and we're bouncing so far. So as long as we hold 258, we're looking more bullish. We're favoring a bounce for 262.5 or above. If we don't hold 258, we could reject with CPI coming out. Also mind there's a gap down here around 252. So you never know what's going to happen. Are we about to get that rejection? As of right now, we favor a bounce, but we'll see depending on CPI. Netflix dumped quite a bit. It is due for a bit of a bounce. So I do think it might be trying to return to like 1100 and 1140 or so. So we'll see how that goes. MSTR is making a higher low here. It's favoring 291. So there might be a temporary bounce and we'll see what happens. Celsius is also forming a double bottom. We have resistance right here at 62.2 to 62.8, but we also have support at 60. We'll see if we pop and dip back down to 60, what happens after that. Supermicro is making lower highs here. We have resistance at 49.6. And we are still looking kind of weak, though, looking at this head and shoulders. We're looking like we might bounce for 49, then continue to reject, and it still looks like it's favoring 45. Looks a little bit weaker to me. However, Palantir looks a bit more bullish because Palantir is just bouncing off support. And because we're above our key EMAs, as long as 178.8 holds, we're favoring 182 plus. For Rivian, we have a quadruple bottom. We're going to see if we hold above 13.05 as long as that holds. We're favoring 13.23. For SoFi, we're looking more bullish as long as we don't end up losing 27.8. We're going to be favoring 29 as our target. For AMD, we're looking more bullish. As you can tell, we're making higher lows right now. As long as we don't lose 234, we're going to be favoring essentially 240. For ARM, we're also forming a double bottom here. As long as we don't end up losing 165, we're going to be favoring a push back up towards the 170 area. For PayPal, we have a nice looking inverse head and shoulders. As long as you don't do 68, we're going to be favoring a push back up towards the 70 area. For Coinbase, we have a double bottom here. We're favoring 331 and then 336 as our targets. We're doing great so far at holding up. Amazon has a quadruple bottom. It's bouncing, but actually, the thing is, when you really zoom out of Amazon, we're also just like range bound on Amazon. We've been trading sideways for quite some time. And then when you look closely, we have a range right here for the last 3-4 days. Break 222, we're bullish. Lose 218, we're bearish. We're in the middle. This looks like it might be going for 222, so it looks a bit more bullish, but we'll see about that. Meta is also consolidating, but as long as we're above 733, we're going to be favoring 740 again. If we lose that, 729 is possible if we look more bullish. Google's consolidating. As long as we don't lose 253, we're going to be favoring 256. And then Microsoft is also consolidating. We're going to be watching 518 to see if we bounce off this or not, so be patient. Finally, Oracle has a nice accumulation. As long as we don't end up losing 276, we could be looking for a bounce back up to 287. So be patient, and we'll see what happens from here. The VIX is technically on a downtrend. As you guys can tell, there's this falling wedge. We're going to see if we get a breakout of the VIX or not. It looks bearish for now, so it might continue to fall to like the 16s, but we do love to base around 16 and bounce. So are we about to break out of this falling wedge? We'll see, guys. You never know what's going to happen, so be unbiased. The 10-year is about to make a big move depending on CPI. The dollar is dipping, but we're at support at 98.7, so we're going to see if it bounces. It's at a make or break level. And then crude's been going up, so we're going to see what happens, okay? So honestly, guys, I think SPY and the QQQ and Tesla Gold a little bit higher, But then we're going to be watching to see if we get a rejection not near all-time highs and if Tesla pushes more or not. We do look bullish, technically speaking, but I am not any kind of like fortune teller. I don't know what's going to happen with CPI, so we have to be a little bit patient and unbiased for this. So be prepared for anything, and we'll see what happens as we have huge data coming out. This data is very significant. It's the first time we're getting a major piece of data in a very long time since the government shutdown had started, and we're going to see what happens with the Fed, what's the Fed's reaction to this, and what's going to happen moving forward. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, that's it for this one. I thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' days. And I'll be back very soon with another update. I appreciate you guys so much. Take care. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and peace out.